Good morning, David Adams here from the UKGBC, and I'm here to give you a quick introduction to a different look probably for you regarding retrofit finance. And how do we estimate how much finance is needed to retrofit the UK's housing stock? And that's both how much is needed, but also what are the benefits that are accrued. And this isn't a report, this is a calculator that's been produced that you're going to be able to play with should you wish, and I'll give you a quick introduction right now. Before I do so though, in terms of the UK Green Building Council, it's a membership-led industry network that's radically transforming the built environment in response to the climate and nature emergencies. Of about 700 members. Many of you, I'm sure, on this in this seminar are members. If you're not and we wish to be, please do get in touch. And they're just a few of the member logos that you can see on the screen. But without further ado, let's talk to you about the investment calculator. It is live and it's on the web. There's a link that you can type in to get onto it and play. Before we do so though, just a bit of a call out to the project partners that supported this with financing and advice, which is fantastic, and also particularly the research partners, Leeds Beckett University, Thermally, PwC and Arup, who were part of the team that developed it. So, how does it work? Well, it's built on a pretty big database, and thanks to Leeds Beckett for that. And it's using various different models all pulled into one place. So the state of the UK housing stock, particularly drawing from EPC information, and also Ordnance Survey and the likes. Fuel poverty information, home ownership information, cost of retrofit measures that Arup supported with, and economic health and environmental benefits that PwC did a lot of work on for us. And then it was pulled together by Thermally, who produced the web version. Now, I'm going to take you very briefly through it, but the best thing to do is have a play. And I'll also just give you a sense of the kind of outputs that you'll be able to observe. But there's a few things to set up. We've kept it as simple as possible, but there are 3 quick start guides. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can start from some pre-assembled scenarios that you can then adjust from, should you wish. And it calculates as I say, the economic, social and environmental impacts, not just what it costs. This is very much looking at it from an investment perspective. And you are able to save your scenarios locally. And if you do so, please do email them to us. We can then upload them and take a look or share with others to discuss. So there's a web here that you can type in to follow on the calculator as I'm speaking, should you wish, or use your camera and phone on the QR code. But I'm going to just take you briefly through the screen, the web page, and take you through those elements. So it starts with a bit of a description and a little bit of a summary of some of the outputs, which change live as you adjust things. And on this, as you go further down, you'll see that you can select the retrofit measures installed. So these are the retrofit measures installed over the full 10 or 25 year period. Ultimately, what you're defining your destination to be. So have in mind there net zero, have in mind fuel poverty, have in mind other aspects that you might be considering. So here you're describing your destination, and you do that just by moving the sliders, and it goes from 0 to 100% of those that are available. For instance, cavity wall, in simple cavity walls, about 2 million of them, sorry, and you can select whether you do 0% of them or 100% over the period of time. The same with low carbon measures in terms of PV, and also underneath at the bottom there, heat pumps. The next stage is to think about, so you've been playing Secretary of State, and the next stage you're effectively being the Chancellor. How much are you wanting the government to subsidise, to grant support those measures into different sectors? So we've broken it down into social housing, private rented and owner occupied, and on the screen here you can see the owner occupied is also divided down into fuel poor, near fuel poor and non-fuel poor, and asset poor and asset rich. And asset poor is effectively you have a mortgage and 3 or less bedrooms. Those are the kind of parameters to give a sense of where are you spending money. And you can say how much, what percentage of the whole of the retrofit works, and over what time period the measures are installed, and what time period they are funded for. So now you've done your Chancellor bit, you can start to look at some of the results that have been updated as you move things. And as you look down, you'll see there are both investment costs, and there are the outcomes of that investment in terms of energy bill savings, in terms of health savings, in terms of grid investment savings, a lot of different metrics. And also at the bottom there you can see there's a bit of a graph of what are the installation rates based on your own assumptions. So the calculator is allowing you to get a snapshot, a high level view of those decisions. And remember, as you're going through, if you're not fully funding, or indeed even if you are, but you'll soon see that you can't fully fund anything, that is a lot of money. It's also prompting you to think about what policies need to run alongside in order to leverage the private investment that's required here. So not looking at the website, but looking at an example on PowerPoint because it's easier. If, for instance, you were to make this selection where effectively I've said all of the easy cavities are filled, all of the lofts, half of the solid walls or hard to treat cavities, 90% heat pump penetration, 10% other low carbon heating, 20% PV. If you did that and you were to subsidise this, so this is the government investment, let's say the government paid for 80% of the social housing costs. For private rented, less generous, 40% on the fuel poor, near fuel poor, and 25 down to 25% for the non-fuel poor. And owner occupied ranging from 60% down to 15, and 15 might be subsidised interest rates, for instance. So, you know, that's perhaps generous in some views, in some areas, not so much going into others. Next thing, as I say, keep in mind what the policies are. For instance, in owner occupied, non-fuel poor, asset rich, if you're simply putting 15% funding, what are those policies that have to run alongside that would leverage in the 85% of private funding? Now, the calculator isn't that clever. It won't take that text, those thoughts, and turn them into numbers. But it's important that we always think about context in this space. So I encourage you to do so. Hence the policies I mentioned, clearly one that the UKGBC is advocating in the owner-occupied sector is a nudge of stamp duty up and down based on the energy performance of the dwelling to try and get the market to value it more powerfully and start that drumbeat of retrofits over an extended period of time. In private rented, that might be a landlord tax allowance, for instance, or combined with MEES. Clearly, there are benefits here. Indeed, using the calculator and based on a ratio of income that comes back to the Treasury when money is spent in the economy, of clearly taxes are recovered at multiple different levels. Actually, over the 10 years, £78 billion worth of tax income we are projecting come back to the Treasury. A lot of money. It reduces household bills by £300 or £9 billion a year. In this scenario, based on the timing that was selected, it tackles fuel poverty over a 10-year, not a 5-year, over a 10-year period. But you'll see why when you look at the deployment curves. And other positives, it saves £22 billion across the 10 years for the NHS and wider society. It cuts gas use by 40%. And interestingly, it avoids, in ranges of scenarios, £60 billion worth of additional electricity generation capacity investment through to 2035 and considerably more through to 2050. Now, that's something we don't really focus on, but there's a big relationship here between the energy performance of our homes and the necessary investment in net zero generation and storage and transmission. And this is giving an indicator of the kind of amounts that are involved. And incidentally, it also creates circa 140,000 skilled jobs. So this is trying to emphasize investment in retrofit is an investment. It's not just the cost. It really is an investment. And this tries to paint a picture of what that investment is. So look, thank you to the project partners that made it possible. Here's the QR code again and the web address. Please do jump onto the calculator, have a play, and we would love to hear from you in terms of your conclusions, thoughts, and there's a Q&A later so we can touch on it again then. Thank you very much.